Is Olivia Wilde going to watch this movie?
Oh man!
It did her dirty. It didn't do justice to what we all watched in real life. Like, that was a love affair. This, no thank you.
I'm gonna need a minute just to recover from that question. It's movie night on Popcast Deluxe.
Yeah, movie afternoon, spiritually.
Spiritually, yes, these are afternoon films. We're going to talk about two movies today. There's obviously the Amy Winehouse biopic. It's called Back to Black. That's in theaters now. And then a few weeks ago, we never did get to talk about The Idea of You, which is on Amazon Prime, which stars Anne Hathaway as a mother of a daughter who dates a person.
Not the daughter.
Not the daughter, dates the pop star in the boy band that the daughter likes, but crucially not the person, not the daughter's bias.
That was the worst summary of the movie I've ever heard. The worst summary of a film you could possibly muster.
What these films have in common is that you will never know the power that lies. A common person could never possibly reach the artistic zhuzh inside a pop star. You'll never know it.
Yeah, why are pop music movies so bad? Like, that's where we're at, right?
Really rough.
Like, biopic, fanfic, they stink.
Okay, which of these two did you like slightly more?
Back to Black, easy.
That's crazy. By far, The Idea of You is...
Seriously?
Yes.
Wow. Oh, maybe the most humorless, unsexy sex movie I've ever seen.
That's not why I think it's a little bit better. You want to talk about humorless and unsexy sex movie? Okay, my thing with Back to Black, and I want to hear you defend it first, but like my fundamental take on Back to Black was like, you know how there's, for CDs in the CD era, there are explicit versions, then cleaned up versions for Walmart or whatever. And then sometimes you'll get like an edited version of a film that feels like it's been edited for like an audience with a different set of cultural values than the people who made the movie.
Sure.
That's what this Amy Winehouse film was. This film is like a biopic, but it's like edited for like an incredibly conservative audience, and they took out anything that could be construed really as super edgy. Everything feels...
What about the close-up of her smoking crack for the first time?
Which
comes weirdly out of nowhere.
Yeah.
One day she's having fun playing pool at the pub, and the next day she's smoking crack by herself.
That was a one time.
And then we're jumping ahead here, but then he gifts her crack rocks for their wedding night. Come on, that's pretty dark.
I just feel like the Amy Winehouse story, the actual Amy Winehouse story,
really dark.
So much darker.
Yes.
This felt like everybody in her life is a beacon of hope. Her father's a beacon of hope. Her nan's a beacon of hope. Even Blake, crack rocks notwithstanding, is a beacon. He's like, did Blake's lawyers sign off on this? Like, seriously, were they just like, you can use his real name, but like, you've got to make sure
him seem like the most charming guy alive.
Guy, unbelievable.
Okay, we need to rewind. Back to Black.
I don't write songs to be famous. I write songs because I've got to make something good out of something bad.
Directed by Sam Taylor Johnson, director of the Million Little Pieces adaptation.
Sure.
Shout out to James Frey. And 50 Shades of Grey.
Yes.
Which, to me, is the thing that links these two films, because The Idea of You is very 50 Shades of Grey.
I mean, they're both very, like, one shade of gray.
but we'll get there. This movie stars Marissa Abela as Amy Winehouse.
Of industry fame.
One of the best young actresses on the strength of Industry season 1 and 2.
Great on Industry.
Hugely underrated HBO show coming back for its 3rd season. Catch up while you can.
Yep.
Bandwagon almost full.
Yep.
She stars as Yasmin in that show, who is the very rich, very at first uptight investment banker. Plays very posh, very prim. She's curious about sex and partying.
Yeah.
She is this character. Like the show has a lot of unknowns in it, all of whom are amazing and really inhabit these roles, and the way they've developed that character over time.
It feels like that show more than a lot of shows. Like they've really built a star. Like
yes,
like we're gonna 15 years from now, it's gonna be like,
oh, they were
look
all
at everyone from
yeah.
industry and look what they've all gone to do.
Yes.
Like it's a really, really well cast show.
Yeah, and she's like arguably the breakout, even in the ensemble cast. Like I feel like she's sort of, and you've seen it because they've increasingly centered the stories around her. Like she's really brought herself to the front. So when the first big thing out of industry is she's going to play Amy Winehouse, I think even fans were like, ooh, like it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things you see in this film, I mean, I feel really bad, but it's that
and the underbite sort of,
and then like
head rocking.
Is it her
that
singing?
Amy Winehouse
Is it
does.
her singing?
It is her singing.
Okay, I mean, it's like not bad singing, but like there's so much of the like.
Which like Amy Winehouse,
I know, but
really
Amy Winehouse
person.
is like an A plus singer.
Yes.
Can I just briefly talk about the one time I saw Amy Winehouse?
Yeah.
Joe's Pub, New York premiere, I think, probably in between Frank and Back to Black. Really, really good job. This is before I was at the Times. Pretty sure it's before I was at the
So much of this movie focused on Frank. I really wasn't expecting the whole first act to be
Again,
Frank.
this is what I'm saying. It's like some weird, like lawyered up version of like, we have to mention this. We have to spend X amount of minutes on this. Let's downplay the downfall and play up the success of Frank in the UK, but not in America. You know, just ridiculous. I remember buying Frank on Amazon.com, the British version.
The import.
Yeah, the import version. Anyway, play Joe's Pub. Joe's Pub, I don't know if it's still like this. I haven't been in a while. But at that time, the backstage of Joe's Pub, which is sort of what you had to walk through to get to the green rooms, basically, is the same long hallway that you used to get to the bathrooms.
Yeah.
And so I go after the show to go to the bathroom, and I'm like, get into that hallway, and I turn to my right, and I'm like, oh, it's Amy Winehouse talking to Jay-Z. And, like, she looks very awkward. And, like, I assume that's a big deal to talk to Jay-Z. And Jay-Z, of course, like, very suave and very charming. And, like, kind of, like, you could tell, like, trying to, like, extract conversation from her. And it was, like, didn't seem to be going that well.
As we learn in the film, a lot of stage fright, Amy Winehouse.
Yes. Anyway, a very beautiful moment. I don't think anything ever came of that conversation. You know, I don't think they worked together or anything.
She went the Nas.
She went the Nas route. But I just remember thinking like, oh, like Jay-Z's here. You know, like that's big. This is big. The show's cool. Also, you know who else was there? JP.
John Perales.
That's right.
Did you say hello?
I'm pretty sure we were seated in that. Remember, there's that one circular banquette at Joe's Pub in the old layout. I think we were seated maybe even next to each other. But I don't know if we were tight at that point.
So what year was that?
So this is 2007, which is in fact just before I started here. And I found a little bit of footage of this show.
And just before Back to Black came out.
Yes. So let's take a look at Amy Winehouse in her prime.
To get back to the film, casting of this actress as Amy Winehouse, it's a stretch. Amy Winehouse obviously has a certain grit, a certain edge,
and also frailty. I mean, this is the thing, and you'll see it. You see it in that footage, and if you've ever seen Amy Winehouse footage, or if you were lucky enough to see her live, one of the real takeaways was that no matter how powerful what was coming out of her mouth was, and no matter how determined she looked in her eyes, there was an intense frailty to her physical presence. And this movie does not at all, except in like the last, let's call it 20 minutes, does not at all address that. It makes her seem like just like a totally healthy, like robust person who then like kind of took a bad turn, which does not, I don't think that lines up with the facts.
So as this movie was getting ready to come out, the first thing you see from it is like still of her in the dress, much like Timothy Chalamet doing Bob Dylan, where everyone's just like ooh, ooh, like right away. You're like ooh, and then you start to get clips and you hear her singing.
Cause I'm not gonna meet your mother anytime. I just wanna grip your body over mine.
And this went viral, I would say, a handful of times in the lead up to this movie, different promo press from it. And much like the Dua Lipa album, the narrative begins to snowball like this is a flop. And it was looking rough, and my expectations going into the theater were like, this is going to be a train wreck. Like, no matter how much I like this actress, no matter how much I like the subject, the singer, Amy Winehouse, this is going to be a train wreck. When the movie starts, it's teenage Amy, right? It's Amy with her Jewish grandma singing song, like young girl. Like, I'm like, oh, like, okay, she can sort of pull off this version of Amy Winehouse. It's way pre-Beehive. It's before the eyeliner. It's before, and then it goes on. It takes a while to get going, as we were talking about.
It really does.
Where it started to slip for me was the Lauryn Hill scene where she's listening to
where she's like skipping down the street, she's singing that thing,
singing Lauryn Hill, and I'm like, okay, like this, like she can't tap into this side of Amy Winehouse.
But also, like, even all the stuff leading up to that, dare I say, that's not stuff from an Amy Winehouse movie. That's stuff from a movie about any young person experiencing creative curiosity.
And that's the problem with so many biopics. And this is why, ultimately, like, I hate music biopics. I hate them. And this is why this movie wasn't particularly egregious to me. And as I get to the middle of it, and I'm like, I know the beats of this career really well. I followed it. I was in New York same time. There's the documentary, which I wrote about when it came out, Amy, which is, cobbled together from huge amounts of archival footage. Also,
like a sort of formally inventive documentary.
Asif Kapadia, who makes movies like this. He made a Senna race car movie, same way. No, you don't see the talking heads. But that movie also had the family involvement.
God, I've never seen bigger logos.
The documentary and this.
The insanity
of the Island Records.
Island Records.
Yeah.
Island Records, 19 Entertainment. Even Ronnie Scott's. Like in the Ronnie Scott's contract, it was like must take up half the screen. Like, come on, man.
But it didn't play as comedy. It didn't play as comedically bad. It didn't play as camp. It wasn't
not even remotely funny.
It wasn't a car crash. No, but I mean, even unintentionally. Like, I expected it to be so bad. Where I landed was like,
except on the scenes where it's this.
Where I landed was like, this is gonna get so much burn on airplanes. Like, this is gonna be. Everybody in the row ahead of you is going to be watching this movie for the next 6 months. Like, it's totally fine. It's totally fine.
It's not correct.
What else you got besides the head movement?
First of all, that is camp. Like, that is unintentionally funny. Like,
but the voice wasn't quite even bad enough to
the voice was fine.
To
like,
make
that's
the impersonation humiliate. Like, it was like it didn't. It just existed. It's like, this is like any other music biopic. It wasn't meaningfully more offensive to me.
But the reason it didn't work for me is it seems to have been made with the intent of like, is it beatifying? Is that the word? Like sainthooding Amy Winehouse. And again, I'm not saying Amy Winehouse is a bad person. I'm not like, obviously a very legendarily troubled person who was also absolutely decimated by exposure to tabloid and paparazzi, suffering from addiction, but suffering in public, linking up and marrying another addict, like
bulimia, which is referenced
but
in the
they'll
film.
just say they're literally, there's that scene where Blake is just like, I can't be with you anymore. And the reasons are you are an addict and you have bulimia. I just felt like this movie served to make everybody in the rear view feel better about themselves in the time when Amy Winehouse was suffering.
Yeah.
It's about making her father seem more heroic. And I'm not commenting on the actual heroism of anyone in that moment. I'm just saying that this film wants you to think
It was very neat.
the father is a hero. Blake, in his own way, is a bit of a hero. The label people are heroes. That's what this film is trying to communicate. And it's everybody gets a fair shake. And it's not that Amy Winehouse doesn't get a fair shake. It's that Amy Winehouse, the actual trauma of Amy Winehouse is missing from this film. And if you lived through the Amy Winehouse era, you'll know that. If you watched the documentary, which is told through Amy Winehouse's words, and also more than her words, her physical presentation. If you've seen that, you will know that this is Fugazi. This is just not it. And so who is this for? You're right. Maybe it's for airplanes, and maybe it's for Island Records, and 19 Entertainment, and
like kids who are like, who's this Amy Winehouse person? You know, like it does seem very much like you can imagine the target demo is not people who were fans of Amy Winehouse, but people who might become fans
which
of
is
Amy
totally
Winehouse.
fair. And that's, if you're managing an estate of someone, I'm sure that's a responsible choice to make.
Yeah.
To me, a film, documentary or fiction or biopic about Amy Winehouse that I would like to see is how did a person who was suffering these lows, these actual, tangible, tactile, debilitating lows, make art that was actually so transcendent? What was the relationship between those things? This film doesn't tell me anything about that. It barely acknowledges the realest of the lows, and it doesn't tell you much about her artistry. She just sort of like shows up with fully formed songs.
Yeah, you get one songwriting song at the beginning where she's like
I have a
nailing
guitar.
it on her first take.
Universal sign of serious artist. I have a guitar.
Which is in the next
No,
film
I know.
also.
It's absolutely.
And then
but then it's just like Valerie just shows up.
And then you get that one scene right before she plays Valerie, which Valerie's a cover, so she didn't create that.
Sorry,
one.
my bad. Yes, Valerie's a cover.
But which is basically you get stuff taken from real life interviews. So she has this live performance where she's about to play Valerie, and they're like, where did this song come from, or whatever, where did this music come from? And she's like basically seemingly repeating verbatim things she said in real life. And I agree. It just like it never quite. It didn't feel real. And it does boil her trauma down to something that it was quite offensive, really, which is that like she just couldn't have a child. Like all she wanted was a child. And you basically get, spoiler, she dies at the end. She's 27 years old. And the moment where you see her decide I'm no longer going to be sober and I may even choose to end my life, is she hears the paparazzi say, "What about your
Blake's
ex-husband Blake and his baby?" And like you have a scene earlier where she meets a girl in a bodega and she's like, I wish I could be your mom. It was like the motherhood stuff was rough. And look,
but it's easier to tell a sort of palatable sob story about wanting to be a mother and not being able to than it is to wanting to be sober and not being able to, or maybe not wanting to be sober. Like we just don't know. Also, just, I mean, a very small detail, but really got under my skin. No, For My Blake incarcerated. One of the all-time great award show speech moments.
For my Blake incarcerated. And for London, this is for London.
And that speech is in the movie.
And a very faithful recreation of it.
Yes.
And this, honestly... And this is why I knew both, man, I guess I really love Amy Winehouse. And also, this isn't the worst movie I've ever seen. When she And it was so faithful in that moment when she won the Grammy.
Yeah.
For record of the year,
Yeah.
and she's in London. They're
Right,
beaming
she's
her
in
in.
via
I
satellite,
remember watching that moment, and when I saw it in the theater, like I got goosebumps, and I was like, oh, like I can't believe that. I remember that night, like. She really won all these Grammys, and then they do the speech, and she's holding her mom, and then they skip the money line, the best line, the iconographic.
Look, here's the
Amy
thing:
Winehouse
people
moment.
shouldn't have to answer. Well, I guess they should, but like if you've made a film that we don't deem artistically sufficient, it's like it's okay. You don't have to like let us know. You don't have to like email us or DM us. No. It's just I want to make sure everybody's clear.
Yeah.
That said. If you are the person responsible for not including that line, I spent a lot of time last night, like on my drive home from the theater. I was like, what is the rationale
for not including the line?
Like, is it something about the temporal? Like, were they trying
did they break up in the movie before
That's what I'm saying.
she said it? Or
like did you guys fudge the timeline? Yeah. Was it that you wanted to make it a moment of a kind of like pure
it did come
celebration?
After their breakup scene in the movie. Maybe that's why.
I don't know.
Maybe,
but she still said it.
Yeah.
So I would like to know if you were responsible for this. Could you just send us a note?
Let us know.
Popcast@nytimes.com. Send a DM.
Could be anonymous. Hit us on Signal.
Yeah, it's on Signal. Joe's responding to comments. Like literally any way is fine.
Yeah. Here's what I will say. Again, I'm not going to seem like I'm fighting for this movie because this is not a good film. It's like it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I really set myself up for like. The worst movie I'd ever seen. It wasn't that. I've seen a lot of like
multiple
it was
times.
not as bad as say the Tupac movie that came out 10 years ago. You know what I mean?
But
It's
like I literally laughed multiple times.
I wish I would have gotten more laughs out of it. Here's what I'll ask you.
Laughed at, not with.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Blake and Amy scenes. Pretty good chemistry on those two. When they first meet in the pub, that whole little run in their courtship, their first date, quote unquote, when he walks in, he's fresh off of winning a horse race. He gives her a few lines.
I did love that. I love
little
that
back
scene.
and forth.
Yeah.
Like
he rizzed her up.
Yeah, they rizzed each other up. You know, she walks over, she plays pool with him. Mm-hmm. He shows her the Shangri-Las, and then
you think she really didn't know the Shangri-Las?
That's a crazy story to make up, though. That Amy Winehouse didn't know the Shangri-Las before she met Blake.
Or maybe she did know them, and she was playing like kind of like, oh, Blake.
No, because then she tells her name.
Right. Yeah, I agree. That opening scene. That like 60 seconds of him saying all those things in accents that I don't understand.
Do you know what Rixtasy was? Her drink?
No.
The banana
Is that a
liqueur
real
drink?
thing?
I don't know. Again, seems like a crazy thing to make up.
But they made up this whole movie. What do you want to? No, I thought that he was balletic in that scene.
Yeah. Okay. Do you know, other than the acoustic guitar denoting serious musician scene, and the fact that Sam Taylor Johnson directed 50 Shades of Grey, you know the other thing that links these two films? They have one very literal thing in common. They use Minnie Riperton's Le Fleur as the romance scene song. Which I thought was really telling. A beautiful, great song, great use of song. But really as a narrative shorthand for like, these people are falling in love.
Yeah. No, I totally didn't catch that.
Okay.
Catch.
The idea of you, least romantic movie I've ever seen.
What people will say.
I don't care what they say.
We're gonna dance before we walk up the moon, and I'm hitting the ground like a rocket. We're gonna dance before we walk. What you gonna do? What you gonna do?
Like this guy from Bottoms. You know your man's name? Nicholas
Galitzine.
Sure. What's going on with this guy? He makes Marissa Abella as Amy Winehouse look
Are
like,
you telling me that Jacob Elordi is to me as Nicholas Galitzine is to you? Are you about to call Nicholas Galitzine one of our great young Twizzlers?
I'll say he did a great job estimating the Riz of Harry Styles.
No, he didn't. No.
Which is lower than people think.
Yeah. The latter part of that is true. Harry Styles doesn't have nearly the Riz that you think he does. But I actually no. I don't actually think he did a good job. I enjoyed this film more than you. I love a sort of like middle-aged rom-com. I love Nancy Meyers films. Like,
Oh my God! Do not.
This is not even. No, I
blasphemy.
know. I'm just saying as a category.
Okay.
I'm
okay.
sympathetic
All right.
to this as a category.
You put this in the universe of Nancy Meyers.
Okay, here's what I don't. You want me to start with what I don't like about this
No,
film?
tell me why it's good.
No, I'm gonna start with what I don't like about this film. Anne Hathaway plays. You said I didn't sufficiently describe the film. You want to describe the film?
Over-described the film.
Anne Hathaway's character, Solène. What I didn't like
It's about
about
a
it.
divorcee falling in love with Harry Styles at Coachella. Yeah,
Sure.
not Harry Styles, quote unquote.
Hayes.
Hayes.
Him
Hayes.
in August Moon.
August Moon, the One Direction stand-in, with songs written by the man behind the One Direction hit "What Makes You Beautiful," Savan Kotecha, wrote all the passably bad August Moon songs. in
Look,
this
you
movie.
live life long. You live long enough. You get to create art
And then parody.
create a movie that's about a lesser version of the art that you created. Get paid on both sides. I can only
The American dream.
I literally can only aspire to that.
I thought they did a great job showing how bad One Direction was at dancing.
Yeah, it was a really genuinely. I mean,
Like you knew it wasn't In Sync because In Sync could dance.
yes, in the entire charm of One Direction was, of course, look at these lads.
Yeah.
these they barely know what's going on.
Did you like that they were trying to see St. Vincent at Coachella while August Moon was playing?
Absolute. First of all, the amount of Saint Vincent
Worship?
spawn in this movie. Did Saint Vincent pay for all this placement? It's very distressing. There's a lot of affection for Saint Vincent. Okay, so here are some things I didn't like about this movie before I get into why I enjoyed it. One, so look, spoiler. They end up together in the end, but only after 5 years have gone by.
Ambiguously, but yeah.
They get back together.
They smile at each other.
What, you think he just randomly showed up? No, they're going to get back together. But 5 years had gone, and
And
essentially...
then he writes a very serious song about her.
But here's the thing, this entire movie, especially in the third quarter of this movie, is about punishing Solène for having this
The Anne Hathaway
lustful
character.
affair with Harry Styles.
Her daughter's mad at her.
Daughter's mad at
Everybody
her.
on the internet's mad at her. Her
daughter-
ex-husband's mad at her.
Everybody's mad.
Yeah.
She's being punished. And I was like, damn, how's this going to end? They're going to break up. He's going to show up, blah, blah, blah. And then they have this whole 5 years. If you find happiness during these 5 years, you take it. And then, of course, 5 years go by and nobody's found happiness and they're all morose. And then he shows up. Anyway, she's punished. The actual takeaway of this film is you deserve to be punished for having this affair. You deserve to have 5 years without love in your life. That's the takeaway of this film.
What is 5 years if you get the rest of eternity together?
It's a phenomenal question. I do not know what the answer to that is, but I know that 5 years of sadness and trauma would likely make me a harder person to be with after the 5 years of loneliness. Something to think about. That's the other thing. The other thing that drove me up the wall. What age is anyone in this movie?
I mean,
What age is
that's my
anyone?
main problem.
Why does the daughter, who's the teen daughter, look
Yes.
older than Hayes?
Yes. And then Anne Hathaway in some
Literally,
ways.
it's so much at absolute madness. I don't know what age the teen daughter, and the teen daughter's friends look different ages. The teen daughter looks older. You only find out how old the Hayes character is halfway through the movie.
How old was he supposed to be?
24.
24.
But they never say it, unless I missed it. They never say it until they are firmly in the it's never I'm 24 and then she's like, could I love a 24-year-old?
Right.
It's we love each other. Oh, and I just happen to casually say I'm 24. So, but I don't know what age anyone is in this movie, and also this movie is not feminist because it punishes Solène crazy for having this desire and successfully seeing it through.
Okay, I'm glad you brought up the age thing. This is why it didn't work for me. I'm open to the idea that I am not the target demographic for this film.
An emotionally savvy person
who
wishes for happiness for people regardless of where they are in their romantic arcs.
I spoke to one of our colleagues who will remain nameless, and she said, as a divorcee in her 40s, she loved this movie and it really spoke to her. And even no matter how silly it was, she needed it because neurotic women in their 40s who are no longer married deserve love too. Fine, great. It should have been more. I want more for them.
Yeah,
I want more for these women. And I didn't feel like Anne Hathaway, bless her soul, 42 years old, I think in real life.
Yeah, 41.
She didn't carry that energy. It should have been Catherine Hahn. It should have been
Catherine Hahn.
Yeah, it should have been Mrs. Fletcher, the since deleted HBO show, which is no longer on Max. Like that was a show about a woman like that getting her groove back or whatever it was, you know?
Yes,
like that was
true.
passable.
It is how Solène got her groove
yeah,
back.
and that was a sexy, funny version.
Yes.
This movie was neither sexy nor funny. The main trauma that Hayes, when Hayes is playing his acoustic guitar and he's like, one time the head of my record label invited me to his house and I thought he was going to take me seriously, but it was his daughter's 10th birthday party. I'm like, yeah.
That's literally how it works,
That's
bro.
your job.
That's literally
That's
how it
what the
works.
money is for.
Also, like, quite literally, at some point later in your life, you'll be so grateful that at one point in your life, you were famous enough to be the entertainment at the record label guy. I'm sorry, like, I know people are going to be like, John, you're...
shed a tear for
I know
that
people
guy.
are like, John, you're so cynical about the bit. Like, how can you say that? That's not about art. But it's like literally part of being that famous. There is some small compromise. This is what Amy Winehouse was fighting against.
That was not even
This
a
is why
small
Amy
compromise.
Winehouse wanted to leave 19 Management. She was like, "You won't make me
I'm not
sing
a
at the
Spice Girl.
I'm not going
Yeah.
to sing at the 10-year-old's birthday party."
Yeah.
I wonder what what kind of song Amy Winehouse and Hayes, two great British talents, would have together.
She would spit on this man and leave the session.
That's absolutely true. Yes, he had no trauma. No, this is his real trauma. And because he says it at least twice, maybe 3 times in the movie. His real trauma is, I auditioned for this band at 14.
Right.
I didn't have a childhood.
It's true that childhood
didn't have a
stardom
childhood.
should be
I could have been in the
illegal.
local play. I didn't get the local play. I got this. Is that why you won't love me?
Is Olivia Wilde going to watch this movie?
Oh, man.
It did her dirty. It didn't do justice to what we all watched in real life. Like that was a love affair. This, no thank you.
I'm going to need a minute just to recover from that question.
You want to listen to some August Moon?
There was a good tweet that was like, mind your business when you see like August Moon in my Spotify Wrapped this year.
It's funny.
Is August Moon music actually on Spotify?
Yeah, oh yeah.
They put it all up.
Oh yeah, they made a soundtrack.
They did a Jocelyn. They Jocelyned it.
Yeah. They made a full album.
Did they really?
Made a full soundtrack. The finale song is sang by your man from Bottoms.
Nicholas Galitzine. I thought he was better in Bottoms.
He was better
He
in
was
Bottoms.
better in Bottoms. I'm sorry. I'm genuinely never going to recover from the Olivia Wilde question.
I thought you loved this movie, John.
Okay. Wait, I genuinely need a minute. I lost the thread.
I really shook you
You
up.
really did. I totally lost it. Oh, man.
I have tears in my eyes. So you got to watch this movie now.
Okay, you have ruined me with this Olivia Wilde question, but I guess I do have to acknowledge one other thing in this movie that I found extremely challenging. Every piece of art in this film is terrible.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we forgot to mention, she owns a gallery in Silver Lake.
Was it the Marchand Collective or something?
And that's how Hayes tracks her down, both at the beginning
He
and
does
the
his
end of
Googles.
the film.
Yeah, he like shows up at the gallery, but he racks out. Like this is the thing.
I love
it's like sneaker shopping. Here's the thing. It's like sneaker shopping with Joe LaPuma.
Yeah.
But it's art shopping at the Marchand Gallery or whatever it's called. And he just like walks in and he's like, I've been in a band since I was 14. I don't know anything. And he walks in and he's like, is this what real art is?
Right.
And he just walks around and he's like, I want that. I want that. I want that. He racks out. They should have done a little like ching ching.
The one
the
laugh in this movie for me was when he was like, "Come on tour with me," and she's like, "I'm busy. I got to run a gallery." He was like, "I bought all your art. Don't the artists need some more time to make more art?"
So you loved this movie.
So I loved it. No, the other thing I loved was the scroll across the screen when it's like Silver Lake.
And they really like came in with the drone footage over Silver Lake Junction. Oh man, it's absolutely phenomenal. Okay, the only other thing I want to talk about these movies together, is there is a sort of unacknowledged character in both of these films, which is the paparazzi, who play a role in both films.
Hayes catches a cougar.
Great headlines, great fake mock-up headlines.
BuzzFeed got a shout. People Magazine,
everybody's doing great.
We weren't in there though.
That's the next movie. Yeah. The Olivia Rodrigo doc was good for us. Like we're getting there. So the paparazzi, I will say one thing in the Back to Black in the Amy film. There were just a couple of set piece moments where the paparazzi surround her and like she's sort of like trying to maintain reserve or dignity or like composure amidst a swarm. And it's purposefully stylized. Obviously, real paparazzi encounters are not like that. Like they're much less regulated. But there were a couple of set pieces that I thought in fleeting moments allowed you to tap in with what I imagine was the true loneliness
The
of
choreography.
the true loneliness of
You
being
like when
Amy
they
Winehouse?
zoom down the dirty ballet flat that she leaves behind?
Honestly, the dirty ballet flats should have been much earlier in the film. I was kind of like, Also, like the height of her shoes, because obviously the difference between her and Blake in the height in real life, like she was very small.
But they were like the same size.
Yeah,
though.
no, I
When
just think
go
like
to
they
the
kept
zoo,
playing with her shoe size. Like one time it's a pump, one time it's a kitten heel, then it's a flat. It is all over the place. Anyway, but the paparazzi, and then the paparazzi like doing damage to Selene and Selene's daughter, and seeing the way in which some part of the narrative of these films is not at all about the star or not at all about the relationship that you're trying to protect, but it's really a stand-in for the public's voraciousness.
Sure.
And that to me, I thought was captured probably better than the actual relationship. Those little like fleeting moments in both films felt true to me in a way that a lot of the actual relationship at the core of both films didn't.
I don't doubt that paparazzi are invasive, but I'm a little sick of it as
a trope,
a go-to. I think it's trite on film right now. The like, oh, actually, this person is a victim because flash, 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 flash. It's just like
it should be podcasters.
Yeah, it should be podcasters. The real villains. Let's listen to "What Makes You Beautiful" by One Direction.
An A-level song. It's a great song.
Timeless.
And also, the sort of inverse of the song in the idea of you about loving an older woman.